Hi everyone, I'm Sarah with Sara Hunt Photography. I'm a photographer in Houston, Texas. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a few tips on how to apply some Bluebonnet overlays. Texas is known for its beautiful bluebonnet fields in the springtime. So I do a lot of client sessions outdoors in the bluebonnets. So I originally created these overlays to help me with my editing client sessions in case I needed to kind of fill in bare areas that needed more bluebonnets. But I have these actual fabric backdrops that I use in the studio. These bluebonnet backdrops are by Fancy Fabric and Props. And it's a great option if you aren't able to do bluebonnet sessions outdoors, or if you're not in an area that, if you're not in Texas and you don't have bluebonnets and you want to try to incorporate bluebonnet sessions for your clients. These backdrops are gorgeous. So this backdrop right here is a size 12 by 8. So the backdrop ends here, and then this is actually a matte floor that kind of goes with it. So it's a great option for trying to figure out, what you're going to do for the bottom part. So this image is fully edited already, but I'm going to show you how you can add some bluebonnet overlays to the bottom here just to kind of make it look a little bit more realistic, since it is, you are shooting in the studio. You want it to look like you're shooting outdoors as much as possible. So for the most part, these bluebonnet overlays are kind of mainly geared and focused for adding, in front, in the foreground part of your image. So most of them are going to be kind of blurred out. Some of them do have a little bit more, for the background here, and then this one is a lot more in focus than, let's say, this one here. But I'm just going to kind of show you how you can add these. So for this image, let's maybe try, we'll go with this one. And I'm just going to drag it in over to the image. I can reduce the opacity just to kind of see what it's looking like here. So let me bring it down. And then I'm going to add a layer mask, and I'm going to hit Command I to invert it. And I'm just going to be painting it back on just the bottom part here. Okay, then I'm going to go in even closer and take my black brush and just kind of start masking some of this off, trying to make it look as realistic as possible. So I'm pretty good with that. Now, if I wanted to add some blur, I could do that. So I could go back to this layer here and go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Of course, that's way too much, but you can kind of mess around with it. What I would probably do is, since I want to kind of keep these flowers a little bit more in focus and then have more blur down here, I'm just going to leave that as is. I'll flatten it. And what I could do is go to this other layer here, this other overlay where it's more blurred in the foreground, place that. I'm going to add a mask and invert it, change to a white brush, and just kind of paint that on right here so that it looks a little bit more realistic. realistic. Okay. Now, one thing I will mention is the backdrop here was created, it looks like, you know, obviously the sun is setting back here. And so when you have an open field with the sun kind of shining on the flowers, they do tend to alter their color and appearance. So when the sun is shining on them, they look more kind of dull and kind of a purple tint, which is whenever I shot these for the overlays, it was kind of in a shaded area, and it was like right as the sun was going down, almost gone actually. So they will give off a more true deep kind of blue color. So if you wanted to match these a little bit better, you could go to selective color and then go to the blue channel and just kind of play around with your sliders here, just to where you can get it to look, you know, pretty similar here. And then I would invert that and then just kind of paint it on the flowers here. And flatten. So let's do a little before and after, before and after. So that's one image I'll show you. This next one is a different Bluebonnet backdrop by Fancy Fabrics. This time she's sitting, so it'll be just a little bit different look. So let's go ahead and start with this backdrop, this overlay here. And again, same steps. We're going to add the layer mask and invert, and I'm just going to paint on here. And then just slowly start taking some of it away. I think I want to keep it there. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Again, if I wanted to add more blur foreground, I can bring this one in here. And Command I to, oops, not Command I. We're gonna add a mask first and then Command I. Grab a white brush. Add some more Bluebonnets. And we could flatten. Another thing we could do is there's some of these have like a mixture of Indian paintbrushes and Bluebonnets. So if you wanted to add a little bit more color here, you could do that. Just to give you another little option to kind of play around with. But if I wanted to add a little bit more blur right here, then I could just duplicate my layer. And I'll go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to add a mask and invert it, and then you can just paint that on. Might be a little too much, actually. Let me see. Let's try it again. Blur. Let's try that. And there you go. So then before and after. Lastly, I'll show you how you can apply them for an outdoor image. So just keep in mind, whenever I'm shooting in Bluebonnets, I always place my subject in an open area. So she's actually standing on a path, an open path where she's not actually standing on the flowers. People get really upset in Texas if you trample the Bluebonnet flowers or if you even pick them. So I'm really I really pay attention to that when I'm placing my subject. I'm always trying to place them in an open area so that we're not trampling the flowers. So you can see here, this was an open area right in front here, and I'm going to add my flower overlays to this front just to kind of fill it in a little better. So let's go with this one maybe. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. Hit OK. I'm going to add a mask and Command I to invert. And I'm just going to paint this on here. And I will need to add some blur because this is going to be blurred in the foreground. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I like that setting. That looks pretty good. So if I wanted to add even more, pull this one in here. Again, add a mask, invert, paint on. And if I wanted to try to fill this area back here in, we can try that. Let's try this one here. Stretch this out here. Add a mask. And I'm going to invert. I'm going to reduce my opacity and just kind of start filling this in here. Okay, obviously it looks terrible right now, but we're going to fix that. I'm painting off of her head. Okay, so I'm going to go to this layer and I'm going to blur it quite a bit. Let's try that. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity here. I'm going to take my brush opacity down just a little bit here. Just trying to blend it a little bit better. And then I can flatten. Now if I wanted to add a little bit more light to blend it even more, I could go to Levels and just move that slider over, Command I to invert, and just paint on the background here. And there you have it. So just a quick before and after. Just kind of shows you how you're filling in those empty areas and just adding more flowers. All right, I hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching.